Okay, so what if the most powerful anti-inflammatory, bone-strengthening, blood sugar-steadying food wasn't discovered in some modern lab, but was written down in a book over 2,000 years old? I know how that sounds. Stay with me for a second. Here's the thing. The human body wasn't a mystery to the God who made it. And if you believe that, then it starts to make sense that the foods described again and again in Scripture aren't just poetry. They're provision. They're instructions. Today we're making a bread that shows up, in pieces, all over the Bible. Fig, honey, and oats. And if you're over 50, if your knees ache a little more than they used to, if you've been told to watch your blood sugar, if your energy dips hard by 3 p.m., if your digestion just isn't what it was, this bread was, in a very real sense, built for exactly that season of life. And here's the fact I want you to sit with until we get there. Archaeologists found evidence of grain being ground into flour and baked into bread at a site by the Sea of Galilee that is over 22,000 years old. 22,000. Before farming even existed. Before Egypt. Before almost anything we'd call civilization. Humans were already doing this. We'll come back to that. Let's get into it. There's a story in 1 Samuel 25 that I think about every time I make this bread. David is out in the wilderness with a few hundred men, hungry, exposed, and honestly, kind of desperate. He sends word to a wealthy landowner named Nabal, basically asking for some food and support after his men had protected Nabal's shepherds. Reasonable request, right? Nabal refuses. Worse than refuses, he insults David outright, saying, "Who is David? Shall I then take my bread, and my water, and my flesh, and give it unto men, whom I know not whence they be?" 1 Samuel 25:10-11. The David is furious. He tells his men to strap on their swords. This is about to become bloodshed. But then Nabal's wife, Abigail, hears what happened, and she moves fast. She doesn't send an army. She doesn't send a plea for mercy. She sends food. Scripture says she took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine, and 5 sheep ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs. 1 Samuel 25:18. 200 cakes of pressed figs. Think about that. In a moment of literal life and death tension, the gift that helped stop a massacre included dense, high-energy fig cakes. Food that could be carried, that didn't spoil, that could refuel exhausted men fast. David meets her on the road. She pleads with him, he relents, and later tells her, "Blessed be thou, which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood." 1 Samuel 25:33. Here's the takeaway I keep coming back to. God didn't stop that bloodshed with a lightning bolt from heaven. He stopped it with a woman's quick thinking and 200 cakes of pressed figs. Ordinary food, in the right hands, at the right moment, did something extraordinary. Now here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't just one isolated story about figs. In Deuteronomy 8:8, Moses describes the promised land to the Israelites, and he lists exactly what makes it good. A land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates. A land of oil, olive, and honey. 7 foods, sometimes called the 7 species. And when you look at what's actually in the bread we're making today, wheat or oats as the grain, honey as the sweetener, and figs as the fruit, that's 3 of the 7, sitting in one loaf. Add a little olive oil to the dough, like a lot of traditional versions do, and you're at 4 out of 7, in a single bite of bread. That's not a coincidence to me. That's a recipe hiding in plain sight. Let's actually break down why each of these ingredients matters for your body, especially if you're past 50 and thinking more seriously about long-term health. Figs are one of the oldest cultivated fruits on Earth, and they are seriously mineral-dense. Dried figs are particularly rich in potassium, which plays a role in healthy blood pressure regulation. They're also a solid source of calcium and magnesium, 2 minerals that matter enormously for bone density as we age, which, let's be honest, is a real concern after 50 for both men and women. Figs also carry a good dose of fiber, and research suggests that fiber-rich foods like figs can help slow down how quickly sugar hits your bloodstream, supporting steadier blood sugar rather than sharp spikes and crashes. On top of that, Figs contain polyphenols and flavonoids, plant compounds that studies have associated with reduced oxidative stress, which is connected to lower inflammation throughout the body. It's fitting, then, that figs show up again in Scripture as a symbol of health itself. 1 Kings 4:25 describes a time of peace where every man sat safely under his vine and under his fig tree. A thriving fig tree wasn't just agriculture. It was a picture of a body, a home, a life in good order. Honey. Raw honey isn't just a sweetener. It behaves almost like a functional ingredient in its own right. Chemically, it's a natural humectant, meaning it holds onto moisture, which is part of why honey-sweetened bread tends to stay soft and doesn't go stale as quickly. Nutritionally, raw honey contains natural enzymes and small amounts of oligosaccharides that research suggests can act as prebiotics, food for the beneficial bacteria in your gut, like bifidobacteria. That matters more than people realize, because gut health has been increasingly linked to everything from digestion to immune function as we get older. Honey also has documented antimicrobial properties, largely due to its natural acidity and, in some varieties, trace hydrogen peroxide. That's part of why it's been used traditionally, including in some traditional systems of medicine, as a soothing agent for sore throats and irritated airways. And of course, devash, the Hebrew word for honey, appears constantly throughout Scripture, most famously in the description of the Promised Land as a place flowing with milk and honey, Exodus 3:8. Provision and sweetness, tied together from the very beginning. Oats. Now, I'll be upfront with you. Oats aren't named specifically in most biblical food lists. Wheat and barley get the spotlight in Scripture. But oats have their own ancient pedigree. Archaeological evidence shows wild oats being processed by humans as far back as the earliest bread-making sites, even if they were originally treated as a secondary grain growing alongside wheat and barley. So while oats aren't a named biblical grain, they earn their place here both historically and nutritionally, as a stand-in for the coarse, whole grains that made up the daily bread of ordinary people in the ancient world. And nutritionally, oats bring something genuinely special: beta-glucans. This is a type of soluble fiber that forms a gel-like substance in your digestive tract, and research has shown it can help slow glucose absorption and support healthy LDL cholesterol levels. That's a big deal for cardiovascular health, especially as we get older and heart health becomes a bigger priority. Oats are also deeply satiating. That gel-forming fiber keeps you fuller for longer, which supports steady energy and can help with appetite regulation throughout the day. There's a quiet parallel here to Proverbs 27:1, which reminds us we don't know what a day will bring. So preparing your body with steady, slow-release energy, rather than a sugar crash waiting to happen, feels almost like wisdom in edible form. Olive oil, optional addition. If you choose to add a touch of olive oil to your dough, which many traditional versions do, you're adding another of the 7 biblical species, plus healthy monounsaturated fats that research consistently links to cardiovascular support and reduced inflammation. Okay, now let's actually make this thing. Full recipe, step by step. Ingredients: 2 cups old-fashioned rolled oats, not instant. 1 cup boiling water. 1/3 cup raw honey, the real stuff, if you can find it, not the ultra-processed kind. 2 tablespoons butter or olive oil. 1 packet. 2 1/4 teaspoon active dry yeast. 1/4 cup warm water, about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. 3 to 3.5 cups whole wheat flour, plus more for kneading. 1 teaspoon salt. 1 cup dried figs, chopped. 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, optional, but it's lovely here. Instructions. 1. Activate the yeast. In a small bowl, stir the yeast into the 1/4 cup warm water with a pinch of the honey. Let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes until it gets foamy on top. If it doesn't foam, your yeast may be dead. Start over with a fresh packet. 2. Plump the oats. In a large mixing bowl, pour the boiling water over the oats, honey, and butter. Stir it together and let it sit for about 15 to 20 minutes, until it cools to lukewarm and the oats have softened. This step matters. It keeps the oats from stealing moisture away from your dough later. 3. Combine wet and yeast. Once the oat mixture is lukewarm, not hot, you don't want to kill your yeast. Stir in the foamy yeast mixture and the cinnamon. 4. Mix in the flour. Add the salt and about 3 cups of the flour, 1 cup at a time, stirring until a shaggy dough forms. Fold in the chopped dried figs. 5. Knead. Turn the dough out onto a lightly floured surface and knead by hand for about 10 minutes. You're working toward a smooth, satiny texture. Not sticky, not stiff. The bran and fiber in this dough will fight you a little. That's normal. Just keep working it. Add flour a tablespoon at a time only if the dough is sticking to your hands. 6. First rise. Place the dough in a lightly oiled bowl, cover with a damp towel, and let it rise somewhere warm for 1 to 2 hours, or until it's doubled in size. This is a good moment to just sit with the process. There's something almost meditative about baking that requires you to wait, to trust something you can't see happening. It reminds me of Galatians 6:9. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. 7. Shape and second rise. Punch the dough down gently, shape it into a loaf, and place it in a greased loaf pan. Cover again and let it rise for another 45 minutes to an hour, until it crowns about an inch over the rim of the pan. 8. Bake. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Bake the loaf for 30 to 35 minutes, until the top is deeply golden and it sounds hollow when you tap the bottom. Your kitchen is going to smell incredible around minute 20. Warm oats, honey, and that faint jammy sweetness from the figs. 9. Cool. Let the bread cool in the pan for about 10 minutes. Then turn it out onto a wire rack and let it cool completely before slicing. I know it's tempting to cut it warm. Try to resist, or the inside will be gummy. How to serve. Sliced thick, with a swipe of butter or a drizzle of extra honey. It's also excellent lightly toasted with a soft cheese. How to store. Keep it wrapped at room temperature for up to 3 days, or slice and freeze it for up to 3 months. So let's bring this back around. Abigail didn't stop a tragedy with a weapon. She stopped it with food, prepared and given at exactly the right moment. That's the heart of this whole loaf. Figs, giving you minerals for your bones and steady your blood sugar. Honey, feeding your gut and helping this bread stay soft and last longer. Oats, slowing your digestion down in the best way and supporting your heart. And I'll leave you with this one, from Isaiah 40:31. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall run and not be weary. Strength that's renewed, not just borrowed. That's what this bread has represented for thousands of years, and it's what I hope it represents in your kitchen too. If someone in your life is in that after 50 season and could use a little more steady strength in their day, send this one their way. And I'd love to know, figs, honey, or oats, which one surprised you the most today? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe, because next time we're going even further back, to the bread they were baking before there was even such a thing as farming. I'll see you in the next one.